Yes, hello and welcome to the PE Insights podcast brought to you by PE Scholar. Congratulations to all of you that have made it through another academic year. I hope your end of term went well and that you're very much looking forward to having some well-earned rest and recovery throughout the summer. And this is just a reminder that if you do have 40 minutes to an hour of your time free on any one of those days where you'd like to check out one of the 33 now episodes, they're there for your use. Today's episode is a conversation with Marcus Down. We recorded this quite a while ago and I did have some issues with the audio, but I managed to get it to a level which we can all listen. In this episode, Marcus introduces us to the universal design for learning principles and how he's using it as a framework to shape his thinking in physical education. I'll let Marcus introduce himself at the start of the podcast episode. Grab a drink, grab a notepad, sit back, relax and enjoy the episode. Marcus, welcome to the PE Insights podcast.
Nathan, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to come on and have a conversation with me. It's been a long time coming, this one. It's taken some time to pin you down, so thank you for freeing up some time for a chat. So first up, tell the listeners a little bit about your journey so far.
Well, I guess I can start pretty early. When I was a kid, I was into sport pretty quick. My dad was an avid baseball player, so as a kid, I have three brothers and two older brothers. So I would always go and watch them play baseball or watch them play hockey or whatever it was. And I got into sport in that way. And then, I should specify ice hockey back in Canada now. So hockey's ice hockey, but around the world, it's ice hockey. So I was playing ice hockey probably from age, 5 up till about 18. And then I was in baseball from about age 3 till in my 20s. And then I got into speed skating. I was doing that for maybe 6 or 7 years, and then got into golf as we do as a teenager. And so I was always into sport. And then when I was, I think in middle school, we had to do a work exchange, like a job shadow. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but you had to go and, follow someone around for a day and see what they did. And I picked a personal trainer.
Yeah, work experience.
Yeah, that's right. So I picked a personal trainer who was actually training me at the time. I was always the small person that was, 20, 30 pounds less than other people. And so I was with this trainer for a day and went, hey, I think I want to, train elite athletes. So that was kind of my thinking. I got in when I was in university. I then went, was part of a baseball program for a little bit, and I was doing kinesiology. And then I remember at the end of one lesson in university, I just kind of turned to my friend and went, yeah, you know what? I think I want to teach. So, and there was some stuff going on back home. Yeah. And there was some stuff going on back home. So I actually ended up leaving the university and moving closer to home. And then I did my education degree and I got into teaching in that way. And now at that point, I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And in the 2000s, at some point, there were no jobs. So I was applying like overseas, and then I got a job in Hong Kong. And I remember flying there going like, I think this might be a hoax. I think I might show up and no one's going to be there to pick me up, or I don't know, it might just be like you got punked type moment. So I arrived in so I arrived in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong. So I had to meet someone. I had to take the train, and I met someone midway through my journey to where I was living. So, I'm engulfed in this city. And again, I'm from a town outside of where I said earlier, that's about 5,000 people. So Hong Kong is not 5,000 people. It's a lot bigger than that. So that was a big kind of change. I ended up teaching grade 3 and then whole school PE from K to grade 6. Did that for 3 years. I met my wife there, who's also Canadian, and we moved back to Canada, where I did my master's. I actually had the luxury or privilege of not teaching for 1 year to focus strictly on my master's. And I was mentored by the very inspirational Dr. Sandy Gibbons, who's a phenomenal phenomenal instructor and researcher out of Canada and UVic. So I did that for a full year, and then my wife got pregnant, so someone had to work because we had a kid coming, and my wife couldn't because she was, having a baby. So I applied all across Canada, got a job in Midtown Toronto, and I worked in Toronto for a couple of years there. My daughter was born in Toronto, and then we moved abroad again to Abu Dhabi and did 2 years there. And then from Abu Dhabi moved to Bangkok. And then during the pandemic, we did the unthinkable and moved during a pandemic to another Southeast Asian city, to Hanoi. And that was short-lived, 1 year in Hanoi. And then came back to Canada and on Vancouver Island. And now we're kind of in smaller islands. But in Canada, it's been a little bit different because there's no PE specialists for elementary for the most part.
Yeah.
So, I was doing some supply work, and then I got a job at Vancouver Island University teaching future practitioners how to teach PE, or, a lot of unlearning happening there, but getting them prepared for their practicums and then their teaching career and what PE can be, or PHE can be. And then just this January, I took a job as a vice principal on a very small island in the Southern Gulf Islands, and student population of 35, 2 classes, K-2 and grade 3-7. So as you can imagine, some complexities there with age and just with differences of learning. So now I'm teaching PE across the school, but also doing vice principal work. And the best part, in my opinion, is, my girls are here. I have 2 girls that are going to school here, and small community. And then also it's a 4-day week. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
That'd be attractive to a lot of listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been great. The days are a little bit longer, but not internationally long. International school days are still longer. So it doesn't change much to me, as you know that with the international school system.
Yeah, certainly. So you briefly alluded to when you had that epiphany moment of wanting to become a teacher because you wanted to train elite athletes. How has your philosophy on physical education changed now? Because I know it's very different now. So did you want to talk a little bit about that? Why PE is important to you and young people?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I had a pretty old school way of being taught PE as a kid. It was like here, it's like almost like the busy, happy, good approach. Like you're thrown into games and you're playing, and I loved it because I played sports, so I liked that. And then in high school, it was I had a teacher that pretty much was like, hey. Like all the basketball players would pretty much choose to play basketball. I was not a basketball player, and we would play basketball all the time. And you would show up and be like, "What do you want to do today?" So again, it wasn't a lot of planned learning, and I know that that's still happening today, sadly. But as I grew and kind of understood kind of what physical education is, it's I come back to David Kirk and how he talked about how Dr. David Kirk, how physical education can, if done correctly, achieve a wide number of outcomes. And we've got cognitive, we've got social, we've got the physical. Leaving one out now. How come I'm leaving one out? But all of the outcomes can be achieved through PE. And and when you look at other subject areas, you're going, can that happen in other subject areas? Well, it probably can, but PE is probably the best environment for all of that to happen, through conflict resolution, for a lot of opportunities for face-to-face interaction. I always say, if you want to see a child that, dealing with conflict or shared decision-making, all of those things, you come to a PE class and you can see how that works. I think you get a really true indication of where that child is in terms of working with their peers, persevering, different, so many different things. And it's not like it's day to day, things change, and you're just you have 25 students in your class, you're probably going to be within a meter of each of those students within the span of a 30-minute lesson, as opposed to a classroom setting, depending on the teacher. You may not see that person all day, really, you know? So I think it's just a valuable subject in that it's truly holistic. It really is.
So you are quite interested in, I don't know if I'm branching into the main section that you want to talk about, but you're quite interested in meaningful physical education and in meaningful experiences in PE. How has that shaped your practice since you were introduced to that sort of concept?
Yeah, when I was reading about meaningful PE, it was one of those things, and I'm sure it's probably similar to many people. It was one of those things like, hey, I think I'm doing this. And but it was also very explicit in that I never really intended maybe to try to do this, or like there was some sort of kind of like oh yeah, no, that links. Okay, I see. Oh, we are planning for autonomy, and we are making it so that, you know, there is some choice. Oh, the challenge, that's another one too. Okay, yeah, I always have this situated for this activity, but maybe I can do it more so in another activity. So I found it, I don't know how this is going to sound, but I found it like, not like, oh boy, that's something insanely new, and this is like a crazy new concept. It was more of, okay, this is what good practice looks like, and I'm sure Tim Fletcher is going to disagree with that, but it is what good practice looks like, and then coming back to, again, purposeful planning for that. I think that seems to be my takeaway with that, in that there's more conscious awareness of like, okay, am I doing this? And then that reflection piece of, did I have opportunities for social interaction or optimal challenge, where there was different entry points and those type of things. So it wasn't like a mind blown thing. It was more of like, oh, this is nice. Now it's all, I can look at it on one piece of paper and go, yeah, I see it all working and aligning. It's great. There we go. Good. And I'm going to be more explicit about some of these things.
No, it's all good. And I mean, you're not alone in that full process. I think when I speak to lots of people about, you know, the work surrounding it, people have always said, well, Nath, that's just good teaching. That's just good PE teaching. You know, if you come and see a good PE lesson, that's what it kind of looks like. And I get that. I think it's the prioritization thing, isn't it? It's the filter or the lens for decision making and making sure that they're definitely in there. And I don't know whether it was Steph Benny or perhaps Tim, I'm not sure about, they talk about it's not good enough to leave it to chance, you know, and assume that it's going to happen. It needs to be careful consideration and planning of it for it to work effectively. But yeah, no, I know you did a bit of blog writing about it when it came out, so I thought I'd ask you a little bit about that. So
and that's sorry
what's the key message? Go on. Yeah,
no, I was just saying too, and when it's almost, because it makes me think about, I did a lot of reading on cooperative learning, you know, about 10 years ago, that the pedagogical model, and that always came up. It was like, when you put students in groups, you can't assume that they're going to develop these skills just because they're in groups. They're going to develop cooperation skills and communication skills. There needs to be that explicit practice and that actual scaffold of what that looks like. So I think it transfers over nicely to the meaningful PE approach as well. And it's very much like, this is what we're doing. So,
right.
My bad,
so
I cut you off.
let's dive into the main section. No, that's fine. Let's just dive into the main section of the message that you'd like to share with listeners. Yeah,
and I think it links back to meaningful PE. And I'm just going to speak a little bit about the Universal Design for Learning. So, Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, which is coming up a little bit more now, but not a ton in physical education. And just a little bit of background. So UDL was created by, well, actually, I think it's a US thing. And what it was is Universal Design for Learning was actually about like access to like facilities, and it was very much an architectural kind of concept. So when you're trying to get into a building, you know, there's going to be an accessible way for wheelchairs to get into the building. for example. But then because there's a ramp to get in, now because you've accounted for the margin of the population, now you've got people that are pushing trams or strollers because, they weren't planning for that, but there we go. Now you got people with skateboards that are coming through. You got people with rollerblades. You got people carrying heavy loads that need to be dropped off at the door. So now you're accounting for all of these people to access the building. So what happened is with CAST, I think it's cast.org, I think is the website, maybe. So a Center for Applied Special Technology, they came up with this UDL principle and dedicated it to education. So same concept, but making the learning now accessible to everyone. Now, with the UDL, I see a lot of links with meaningful PE. So there's kind of three principles. There's engagement. Okay, so we're trying to get engagement, representation, means of representation, means of engagement, and means of action and expression. So means of engagement is that motivation. So getting the student to be motivated and comfortable and safe in their environment. So you think a lot about relatedness. We think a lot about autonomy and choice and appropriate challenge and personal relevance. So those are the motivating factors and how we can do that within our PE setting. And then we have representation. So representation, this is how is the information represented to our students? Are you a teacher that goes up and just starts talking, just gives it verbally? Or are you a teacher that has it written up? You have your outcomes written up. You also have maybe an option for video if someone needs to go over it quick beforehand. Do you have visuals on all of your centers or all of your signs so that students can identify that? Do you have students in your class that where English is maybe their third, fourth, fifth, or sixth language? So do you have alternative languages represented so that the students can access that information more clearly? Do you have students in your class that maybe need a scribe if they're doing some reflections? So again, you're accounting for, actually that's a little bit more action and expression, but for representation is how is everything shown so that it can be accessed, essentially. And then the action and expression, and from what I've read is that PE teachers struggle with this the most, is are we providing multiple ways of students to express what they know and what they can do? So what we mean by this is if you're doing an assessment, and sometimes it's really hard, like a gallop is a gallop, right? Like if you're doing a physical locomotor, a gallop is a gallop, but maybe the choice that we add some autonomy and say, hey, you can choose a few friends that you'd like to gallop with, or choose a game that we can gallop with, or, hey, do you want to gallop one-on-one with me, or do you want to gallop with a group? So you can add those autonomy and choice again to make the student feel comfortable. But again, sometimes we can express in different ways in that sense. It's kind of one skill, but we can kind of show it maybe in different contexts of our class. So different ways to express. And I think this is more now looking back at a classroom, like if you're thinking about think back to when you're doing like a paper, in grade 7 on World War II or whatever it is, you have to make a poster. Here's your poster that you have to make. Well, why not have them make a podcast, or how come not have them make a design? They have choice of how they're going to express their learning so that they can show their learning in the best way possible. So I'm still kind of wrapping my head around this expression one and how it can be best done. Because sometimes I'm finding it's hard, again, because a gallop is a gallop, but also, that's kind of got me thinking a little bit more and more. But I also know it's probably the most difficult, or maybe most poorly done anyway, from PE teachers. So as you can see, these kind of things align really nicely with the meaningful PE approach, and it is a framework, just like the PE approach of meaningful PE. So. And I always come back to the saying of teach to the margins rather than teaching to the middle. So we're teaching to the middle, we're hitting that 50% of, those kids in the 5, 6, 7 kids out of 25 that are great. Yep. And then as we push to the margins, if we can ensure that we are teaching to the margins, now everyone should be accessing all of what we're providing them, and hopefully there can be success there. So yeah, that's kind of the premise of that. I don't know. Dr. Grenier has done a lot of work with that. I think she has a book on it, and there's a Lieberman scale that you can use to see how you are as a teacher when using some of these UDL concepts. But it's very much that particular checklist, because you might use it with like teacher trainees or teacher. You might have your colleague come and watch you and tick some things off. It's very much specific to working with a student that may have like a, like working with a disability or whatever it may be, whether it's like in a wheelchair or, yeah. So I'm sure that you're probably sensing a few connections there with the Meaningful PE. But again, this came back to, this makes sense. This makes sense. But again, we... Yeah. It comes back to that reflection piece and that explicitness of providing that for your students.
Did you, when you were, because you had that short period of, well, not short period, but a period of time where you've been working with developing teachers and training teachers whilst in practicum or teacher placement, did you introduce that to them? And if you did, how did they find using it as a framework?
So actually they were taught it already in their other subject areas, or at least in one of their principles courses. Okay. So they were aware of it. But they, of course, it's contextually, it's very different in PE than it is within a setting of mathematics or something. So we would talk, I think representation was a really important one. I mean, currently in Canada, we have a lot of Ukraine refugees right now. So ensuring that language is represented and that, students can access, if you are putting those, signs up for centers or whatever it may be, or even just your learning outcomes. And representation is also big because I would model always having the learning outcomes up on as they came in. And we'd always have our classroom agreement every day that we would refer to. So we have that visual piece every day and it would be referred to. But also a lot of these students that I was working with were working with K, grade 1, grade 2. So even if English is their first language or their home language, like those pictures are really important for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So I think that was probably one of the biggest ones, but also autonomy was another one too, in terms of, when you, again, through modeling activities, just simply questioning and going, what are you noticing about this? Well, I noticed at that station, there's choice of 6 different objects. Yeah. Okay. What about this one? Oh, well, I noticed that you could either go to a cold defense, warm defense. Okay. So what are we ensuring that we're having here? Oh, choice. And why? And we talk about motivation. So again, coming back to those things of engagement and representation. So, I think it was already scaffolded, so that was helpful. I didn't have to spend too much time on it.
Sure.
I guess it's a thing now. So which I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you've given some examples of it being used as like a framework or a lens for individual lessons. Is there a scope for it to be used for like planning, maybe medium term or long term? Because they all kind of link into every aspect of PE, right?
They sure do. I mean, you'll see some of the specific things within the framework for representation is like about like writing and whatnot. So you can kind of take stuff out. And I know when I was working at the UN school in Hanoi, the team there, we kind of looked at it and we pulled out some things that didn't apply. But then now, I don't know where they are in that process now, but I know what we were working on, what can we focus on within the context of our units in PE? But we never really got to the explicit point of, in each planner, maybe it's like, okay, we're going to make sure that we're focusing on this, and this within this UDL framework. So it's a bit of a map, which is like everything, but
I was just thinking, I suppose, in terms of like representation, are the activities and the sports or the movements they're doing representative of the kind of activities they might have available to them outside of school? And are they representative of like the cultures and activities and stuff as well? That, like, for me, I'm thinking, if I'm using that model, yes, I know I'm going to want choice and autonomy and agency, but in terms of representation, am I considering the children in front of me and providing them with activities or opportunities to move that are representative of their culture, the geography of where they are, and their lives outside of school as well?
Yes.
So it's something that for me, I'm going to look at, because that's quite, I haven't seen, other than reading your work on it, I haven't seen this framework being used in physical education. So for me, it's something that's interesting, exciting, and another thing to look at.
Yeah, and I can send you an article. Someone just wrote an article in the last 6 months on it too, so I can share that with you too. And it actually gives some questions about there's like no research on it, right? So people are saying, hey, this is a good way of doing it, but is it actually working? So we need people like you and your colleagues to go out and try these things out and see if they actually do work, and share that with everyone. But the example that you're giving actually comes back into the engagement. Even though you're talking about representation of your students, it's coming back to that motivation piece and that personal relevance of, hey, well, we've got children, I always go back to the Thailand example actually of, hey, we're in Thailand right now, and we're not teaching Sepak Takraw, which is the national sport. That's not really a fair representation of what's happening here. But when we think about representation, maybe some of the examples that we're having on our iPads, maybe we have some iPads that are showing some GIFs or GIFs of some movements, or maybe the posters up in our classroom. Do those represent the classroom community? Or is it, which I'm sure you've seen, you go to a school and, all the posters put up are all white children, but in front of you, you've got Black, Indigenous, people of color that make up 80% of your class. So that comes back to the representation place, and also ties into that sense of being comfortable within your setting, which then helps with motivation and engagement in the lesson. So it kind of all ties in a little bit there.
Brilliant. And that's excellent. Thanks, Marcus. And hopefully that's opened the eyes to some of the listeners to maybe go and have a look at that. And if you can signpost to papers, that'd be amazing as well. So let's move on to the next section then. Top tips for PE teachers. What are they?
Be kind. I think that's my tip. It's a simple one, I think, but it's be kind. I think all educators need to be kind and caring, because we don't know what happened to that child in the morning. We don't know what's going on. Well, sometimes we do. It's at least to a small extent. Again, I know you said belonging, but this needs to be a place when they come to school that is comforting, and they need to feel safe, and they need to feel loved. And if that doesn't happen, then the learning, honestly, who cares about that at this point, right? We need to make sure that we have a connection with those children. And I'm sure everyone can contest to that student that comes in that, sits down and doesn't want to do anything, right? And then over time, you just have conversations with them, you chat with them, you get to know them, and then, oh, look at it, starting to join in because they feel safe. They know that you care. And I find that that's really, I say it's simple, but I think it's a really important thing that needs to be established first, and it needs to be continued and modeled. Because if you aren't kind as a teacher, what happens to those students? It's a disaster. So I mean, that's my biggest thing. And when I saw that question, I was like, well, I could really go into something in depth, but I think it's really comes back to how you are with students and being caring and kind, and getting to know their interests and saying, hey, you saw the hockey game last night? Because that they like that team and you connect with them, and I saw you at the market. How was that over the week? Just connecting with them when they come back on Monday, and ensuring that, hey, like this person actually cares and wants to get to know me a bit better, and having those conversations. It's really hard to get someone to jump in the PE when they show up again, when they're 12, 13, when they had very negative PE experiences, and they show up to your class and go, I'm not doing anything. Okay. And then, you just kind of chat with them and let them know you care. And eventually something will come from that, from my experience anyway. So I'm going with that. I'm going with kind and caring.
It's a good one to go with. Like, people do look at that question and go, right, do I go granular with lots of like pedagogical strategies and tips that I use in my lessons that make amazing lessons? Or some people strip it back and go to like I'm going to give you one thing to focus on. And kindness, it really is an easy currency to spend, isn't it? It doesn't take much. And, I've listened to Neil Morgan and Kay Reynolds recently talk about trauma-informed practice and about having that smile on your face all the time, and really making PE as psychologically safe place for children to be first and foremost, breaking down the barriers before they even get to the lesson, content of your lesson, right? And it's a simple message that we just need to shout from the hills and get as many people to do as possible, I think. I went into a local school recently, and you go into schools and they've always got these ethoses and or values and all these, sorts of key messages that they instill in their pupils. And this one school still uses the word love. And they've got 3 words, and the final word is love, and they're proud about it. And they actually had parents question why they're using the word love. I love my children. Do I really want my teachers to love my children? And the school are so proud of the fact that they want the children in their care to feel loved, to feel cared for, to feel like a sense of belonging, like they're part of the family. Like this is, it takes up a large part of their life, school. So they want to be part of it, and it's bigger than the small lessons that happen every day. It's bigger than that, and I think with that as their core value, what you're seeing from the children is a real sense of belonging, a real sense of safety, and a real sense of that actually the adults around them want them to do best. And for me, that's what it comes down to. Subjects aside, pedagogy aside, assessment aside, just care about human beings in front of you first and foremost, right? I know it's easy to say because we've got to look after all the other stuff, but if that's what underpins your decision making, then I think you'll be in a good place, right?
Yeah, and if you don't start with that, the other stuff's not going to come very easy, I can assure you.
No. Yeah. Can you summarize some of the key messages then for today, from my little chat, and see if we can kind of summarize them into some golden nuggets, if you could?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I can go off in tangents, so I'll try to be quick here. I think, you mentioned the breaking down barriers. I think that's a really important one. I think that ties in really nice with the UDL, but also we talked a little bit about even maybe our preamble before we started talking is just the openness and motivation as teachers to make small changes within our daily practice and reflect on what we're doing, and maybe do a quick reading on something and go, hey, this sounds interesting. Maybe I'll take a look at this, maybe try something out. And I feel like probably the listeners that you have are probably already doing that, but ensuring that, for those people to keep doing it. And then for maybe people that aren't, maybe just sliding a couple papers around the office, putting them up on walls to again, maybe motivate others to maybe consider some different changes to at least open up ideas for the betterment of student teaching, the betterment of learning that happens in your school.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Brilliant. No, brilliant. And it's always the hardest part to summarize what we've discussed, but I'm really interested in the UDL stuff. I want to have a look at that and see where that fits and see how I can apply that to schools in the UK and whether there's a place for it. But what I do know is that I'm really happy people have got to listen to you share your voice, Marcus, because we've known each other a while now, met in Hong Kong a while back, and I'm grateful for you to come on and have a chat with me and keep doing the wonderful things that you're doing as a PE teacher and a vice principal now.
No, thanks so much for having me. And I know it took a while to connect, but I think that's a good thing. We probably took, we were connecting, but we just didn't get to connect face to face. That's okay. I know we're busy, so that's good.
Yeah.
Well,
and there's always times for part B.
Keep doing what you're doing, and I'm enjoying what you're putting out, and hopefully that list of people that are coming on the show, it's really exciting to see all those people coming and wanting to share and help the betterment of PE teachers around the world. So thanks again.